Hi, everybody. Welcome to ZTV Live. Today is Tuesday, August 10th, and we're so happy that you're joining us tonight for another edition of Reading, Writing, and Ralph. We had some technical challenges beginning. We just had a pretty major thunderstorm come right through and some other equipment issues, but here we are. The show must go on, and that's the attitude that we like to adopt for all of our shows. So, without further ado, I'm bringing on our favorite literary editor, Ralph Peluso. Hey, Ralph, welcome back to ZTV.
Thank you, Susan. It seems like every summer we have to deal with these thunderstorms for a few of the shows.
I know. I
Um,
mean, who'd have thunk that they all roll through around 6:30, 7 o'clock every, on these sultry summer nights, right?
yeah, it starts to cool off and things go from bad to worse. But anyway,
Yeah.
we're here. It's Tuesday. It's another exciting author on who will get up and tell their story. This is we're going to discuss mostly his second book. His first book was a terrific sports book called Golf Dogs, which
Oh, right up your alley,
which
Ralph.
an interesting way to try to win a golf championship. Um, but this one's a murder mystery in a very Agatha Christie style of writing, and with some twists, turns, and mayhem. So um,
Excellent.
let's welcome Buzz Rettig.
Excellent. Hi, Buzz. Welcome to ZTV Live.
Hello, how are you? I enjoyed the mayhem part. That was good.
Hi, Buzz. How are you today?
Ralph, I'm doing well. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for coming on. And we feature a lot of local and new writers, and we're very excited to have them on to have them tell their stories and get the our audience to know about them and their background. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you did, what your career was like, and how you got into writing.
Well, I was born as an Air Force brat, so we moved a lot, saw a lot. Um, Finally settled on the East Coast, went to school out west, came back, got a job. Um, let's say dug ditches. I was a substitute school teacher for a while. Finally got a job in defense contracting, and then I got into consulting, and ultimately ended up being what they call a proposal manager.
Mm.
Which, if you're in this area and you're in the business, you understand what that means. And if you're not, um, basically, if the government wants to buy something, they send a request out to companies, and the company has to put together a bid with money and people, and it's a pressure cooker. But you win some, you lose some. It's good. And I think I started writing in high school. Um, the first story was El Conocero. Do you speak Spanish? I don't speak Spanish. I
No,
just remember it was the
no.
butcher. So anyway, so that was my first story, and over the years, here I am.
There you go. Yeah, government contracting is a world unto itself. In the last 15 years of my career, we had a lot of government contractors as clients, so I understand the
Oh,
morass and the technical
right.
process and bureaucracy. It's really something to behold. So your first book, I'm sorry, your first story, The Butcher in Spanish. Tell us a little bit about that story and how your writing has evolved through Golf Dogs and on to by any other name.
Well, given I wrote the first story in high school, I pretty much had nowhere else to go but getting better. Uh, and I wrote some in college. Um, and I'm probably one of the more undisciplined writers I think you'll ever meet. But I wrote some in college, some articles, drafted some novels. I have one or two I wrote in college that I couldn't do now. I couldn't publish them now. They're terrible. I could work on them and get them out there, um, but over time, as a matter of fact, the by any other name, the one we're going to talk about tonight was my first novel that I ever wrote. And Golf Dogs was the third novel I've ever written. The second one I haven't published yet. That'll be coming, uh, I don't know, maybe a year or so. I have to go and do some revisions. Um, but no, I've just sort of always dabbled. And just one day I decided I was going to write a novel, and here it is. Well, here's one
Yeah.
of them anyway.
So the inspiration for the plot, the subplots inside of By Any Other Name, where would you say you drew those from? Any particular authors or movies or life experiences? Or...
Well, yes and no. I don't know that I patterned the characters on any individual. I think it was more patterned on personalities. The protagonist starts out as a bit of an arrogant prig. You know, he takes his writing and himself so seriously you can't help but hope he ends up in a ditch somewhere. And then, you know, figuratively he does. And you know, as the story evolves, he evolves, which is where we end up with the murder and the mayhem, as you describe it. So, no, that's, you know, all the characters. I don't know. I base the characters on individual. If anything, it's a number of, you know, kind of a hybrid. You know, you take this from that person and that from, you know, in Golf Dogs, I knew people like the characters, and you know, they were golfers, so it was a little bit easier. But no, you just make them up as you go along.
Yeah,
they call it fiction for a reason.
They sure do. And
yeah,
the book, to give the audience a sense of the plot, the book involves a writer who is meandering along and comes up with a plot to have a book he writes released and published under a pseudonym, and it catches fire, and ultimately, to get himself back in the limelight, he has to fake the death of the phony writer. So, well, I use that as a backdrop for a second. Try to get to the first trivia question. So,
okay.
So we're going to do 3 trivia questions tonight, again, and make sure you type your answers in very quickly. The first one with the correct answer will win an autographed copy of Buzz's book, By Any Other Name. So in keeping with that theme, thank you, Buzz.
Yeah, I'm just helping.
In which of James Bond's movies was a 00 agent, and it was actually 006, faked their death and then ultimately become the antagonist in an effort to take down the world? So in which James Bond movie was 006 responsible for faking his own death and then turns around to become the antagonist and take down the world? So talk about the plot. It's a very thick plot that evolves quickly, and it's loaded with a tremendous amount of characters that are of all different shapes and forms and complications. So why don't you describe it a little bit?
Alex Dunn, the protagonist, as I said, takes himself very seriously. He's written, I think it's 4 novels that, you know, were artistically fine but didn't sell. Nobody bought them. They paid enough to cover the agent's fees and keep Dunn from starving in a ditch. The agent, Mandrake, finally convinces Dunn to write a piece of trash, a potboiler. And he does, but the agreement is that at no point will his name, Alexander Dunn, ever be part of that. So Dunn writes this huge piece of garbage, and he takes great pride in that his name isn't in it. He comes up with a pseudonym, James W. Snydecki. And Snydecki takes on a life of his own to the point where, to make sure Dunn is never discovered, he has to take on the persona in disguise of Snydecki and be interviewed and do radio shows and TV shows. And then at some point, he decides he's going to write his own novel. He's learned lessons from writing as Snydecki. He writes this great novel, and he's panned. He's panned. His new book is a good novel, but all of the critics say he's stealing from Snydecki. And that kind of pushes him over the edge.
Yeah.
And that's where we get the murder and the mayhem.
That's where you get the murder and the mayhem is right.
Murder and the mayhem, you bet.
And we have a winner already on the first question. So
We do have a winner on the first question, and thank you everybody for answering. The winner was Goldeneye, and the winner was Siobhan Kitchen, who is tuning in tonight. So that's great. Congratulations, Siobhan. If you would send us your physical address through a private message to the Zebra Press on the Facebook page, we'll get a copy of Buzz's book assigned to you. We also had some other people are watching. Buzz, your sister Lisa is watching and said that your mom is also watching. So that's fantastic. And Mary wants to know, how does Ralph have time to read all the books and have time for golf?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, Mary, let me
I'll
answer that question. Mary, it's very simple. When you get behind a bunch of slow players and you're waiting, you read those pages.
Okay, so that's a great tip. Okay, I'll let you guys get back to your conversation.
When I first read the name J.W. Snydecki, and then by the time I finished the book, and I was thinking of the book as a massive satire, it struck me how satirical the name Snydecki was. Like it promotes kind of a sneaky image, very snide kind of person. What was your thoughts on naming him?
Well, the name actually dates back to college. I don't recall, nor do my roommates. We get together every 6 weeks or so, and we visit, we Zoom and talk. And they got copies of the book, and we all had a good laugh because they all know Snydecki. But we could not remember where that name came from. How I, came up with it. Maybe it was somebody was looking for Buzz Rettig, and I don't know him. I'm Snydecki, whatever the circumstances were. But none of us knew where that came from. But we all recalled that it was in college, and I think it was just one of those names that sounded like you could use it in any circumstance and get away with it.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done, given that you gave that character who didn't exist but is sitting in the background that name. But as I said, let's start with the character. I think you already talked about Dunn, so let's talk about Dunn's relationship with his girlfriend and what went on there.
It was, in some respects, it was just a way to further the plot. Have a relationship, a loving relationship, have a little bit of history with Shirley Morrison, the girlfriend. But there's one key element in her past that, in fact, goes to resolve the actual story. And this gets to the writer-photographer, the journalist, Charlie Anderson. So the relationship is key insofar as they do have a loving relationship, but her past plays a significant role in the murder trial and the resolution of the murder trial.
Well, one of the things that jumped out at me with Shirley's relationship with Dunn is they were trying to make it open and honest, and she kept pushing for honesty, and he held a little secret from her, and she held a bigger secret from him, which turned out to be okay in the end, right?
Yeah, well, that's so
what were you thinking about that what was going on between the characters and how that fits into a relationship, although it worked out in the end?
I've heard writers, and at times I've had trouble believing it, but the characters do kind of evolve on their own. They don't get free rein, because if they get free rein, I don't have a job. So I need to have some control over them. But the relationship between Shirley and Dunn evolves sort of organically, and it's not that Dunn doesn't want to tell Shirley the story about J.W. Snydecki. It's when it's a good opportunity for him to do it, he chickens out. And when he feels like it's the right time to do it, she's not around, or something else is going on. She's going through something. So it just sort of never comes about to the end of the novel, when it's obvious who's who and what her secret was, which is good for Dunn. So that's how they came to be the couple. That's how that came about.
Granted. So the question is in a relationship, talking to Buzz the author, is honesty only when it's convenient, or when you say you're honest, you have to keep something back until the right time, or is honesty just a facade?
Honesty is what you use when you need it, when you're writing fiction. I think, obviously in personal relationships and marriages, in any sort of relationship, honesty is key and it's critical. But if all your characters are constantly honest and constantly, opening their kimonos, you've heard that phrase, I'm sure, being in the business a while, then that's called a documentary. Fiction is all about, using what you can to make the characters interesting and keep the story moving. That the fact that Dunn's a bit of a doofus when it comes to, kind of stepping up and telling Shirley that he is who he is, and that this other person is not another person, and that Shirley hides the fact that she hides Anderson, and ultimately puts two and two together, which saves Dunn's bacon. But no, honesty is great when it furthers the storyline. I mean, in a relationship, it's good. In the storyline, well, where's your story going? It may or may not be good.
I agree. So that leads us to the second trivia question. So let's see who out there has their wits about them in a classic novel. There's a classic novel with a complicated plot line and a love story where everyone falls in love with the rich, beautiful heiress Bathsheba Everdeen. And one of her suitors, to get out from under the relationship, faked his suicide and then returned and was shot dead. So what was the name of that classic novel where everyone falls in love with Bathsheba Everdeen, only to see her suitor fake his suicide and then come back and be shot? Anyway. So
another happy story.
Another happy. Well, they're
another
fiction.
Happy story.
It's someone returns, and again, you don't. It's almost where you were in your book. Someone returns, and they're kind of recognized, but kind of not, and of course, their ending's a little bit more tragic. So, but I want to talk about Snydecki a little bit more in the book's influence on the people who read it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And explain how you developed the ways that it affected all the characters, because it was, to some, it was very, very much a religious experience. So talk about that a little bit and what it did to the people along the way.
In the story, I wanted to show how. Well, let me back up just real quick. In college, I had a professor, a literature professor, great guy, and he often said that you had good literature and bad literature, and you had good trash and bad trash. And he said he'd prefer to read good trash any day over bad literature. And so what you have is good trash in The Awakening of Adam, the trash novel that Dunn wrote as Snydecki. Mm-hmm. And within the context of the novel, the idea was to show how some words impacted some people and other words impacted others. And in fact, the various characters, I didn't put a ton of these characters in the novel, but of the characters I did put in, his words impacted them greatly. A little senior at Stanford who has been bullied all of his 4 years because he's bright and intelligent. He reads a paragraph or two in the novel, and suddenly he realizes, well, it's okay not to be cowed anymore, and he takes on two football players. Well, that's fiction. He probably in real life wouldn't have done that. But in the story, the novel impacts him and leads him to take action in his own defense. And there's a farmer's wife decides to go back to college based on what she read. So the characters read it, they read part of it, they take from it what they want, and it has an impact on their life.
Yeah. Well, one of the people that was most profoundly impacted was Winnie Betterman. I think that was her name.
Bateman, Winnie Bateman, yeah.
Bateman.
Yeah.
She went from corporate tramp to, finding God, I guess. And what hit me when I was reading what was happening to all these people, it almost seemed to like a televangel kind of impact, or rock star, when people just have, effervescent adulation for rock stars. And was that some of where you were trying to go with that? Because it's very compelling when you read it, to how much these people underwent change in their lives.
Right, and it really, that's basic writing. What you write is, and I appreciate that you felt that way, you saw that. Any book you read, and whoever you are, if you enjoy the book and you go back to the book, odds are you found something that's had an impact on you, that's touched you, that's moved you, that's given you some context about people or events you've gone through. And that could be a religious experience, it could be an emotional experience, it could be nothing more than sort of an awakening of your soul. Now somehow you have something that either has enlightened you and allowed you to do something, or it's given you permission to do something or to feel something, and all of that is, that's one of the great powers of fiction, of any novel. You read Somerset Maugham's The Razor's Edge. You might look at that. Somebody might read it as the worst piece of crap I've ever read. Other people, I think I've read it 4 or 5 times. There's always something new in it that I find kind of intriguing, and that you can read Ian Fleming. And you'll find something there. Maybe it's trash, maybe it's misogynistic, but the writing was the writing, and maybe you find something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, but it was as I said, it was very captivating, the way the transition of the sub characters to the plot, and
right.
How they went through life-changing experiences. And we have a winner for the second question.
We do have a winner for the Bathsheba Everdeen question, and the winner was Nancy Gorski, Nancy Campbell Gorski. Congratulations, Nancy. We have your address, so we'll get a book out to you. Yeah. Thank you so much for playing, and congratulations.
Nancy's a regular on the show, so
she is. Thank goodness.
Good job, Nancy.
Pretty prolific.
Good job.
Trivia winner. And one of my trivia partners.
Racking up the books, huh?
That's right. One of my trivia partners on our team trivia that we play. And she's very good at it. And,
she is. And you know what? I forgot to say the name. The book was Far from the Madding Crowd. I just realized I didn't say that. That was the correct answer. So.
Right. And we got one more trivia question to go. So hang on, audience, and stay sharp so get your answers in very quickly. The other contextual theme that hit me, particularly as it came to the mayhem, which really is the mayhem in the courtroom, is was this again a little bit of a satire on the justice system? And before you answer that, I'm going to ask the third question, because I have a feeling your response is going to be a little bit longer. So Sherlock Holmes failed to solve the murder case in 3 of his novels, or 3 of his stories. So name one of those stories, and you'll get an autographed copy of Buzz's book by any other name. So again, the justice system, and a look at it from a satirical approach that you wrote. What did you think?
What's the saying? We have the worst justice system in the world, or except everywhere else, or something. I forget how that goes. But in fairness, any large institution is ripe for parody. A courtroom is no exception, especially when someone's on trial for something that can't be proven, that he didn't do. Didn't do it because it couldn't be done, but no one believes him. So you're bound to have some I don't know, stupidity. I guess this is good a way. When Mandrake, without giving too much away, there's one person in the courtroom who knows for certain that Dunn could not have done what he's on trial for his life for. He could not have murdered the man he's alleged to have murdered. But he's the witness for the prosecution because he swore to Dunn that he would never let that secret go. So when he's up on the stand trying to thread a needle between not sending his writer to the gallows and not giving away the secret, there's a lot of humor that you can pull out of that. And I haven't done it justice. You'll just have to read the book. But yeah, there's
you don't want to give too much away, but it is it's fast paced, and there's a lot of poking at the American justice system going on in that courtroom. Some of it's subtle, some of it not so subtle, but it's very.
I would think the bathroom scene is not subtle at all.
No, that one certainly is not.
That was pretty out there. Yeah.
Yeah, so much fiction is based upon situations that writers have experienced in my past. I've written a fiction, and some fictional stories, and they were all based on some element of truth. So where did you come up with that one?
When I started writing, I was I thought of myself as the next great American writer with the great American short story. I don't know any writer who doesn't, or they're probably out there, but I wasn't one of them. And I actually had an agent by any other name. It was the first novel I wrote, and I finally got an agent. And I did a lot of reading about, finding an agent, getting an agent, and keeping an agent, and what to do. And the agent was a very nice person, very patient with me. She sent a number of manuscripts out to a number of publishers, and one of them came back and said, "This is a very quirky novel and not quite right for me." And I said, okay. And that was at the top of the letter. And at the bottom, the publisher said, "But if you come up with any quirky stories, please let me know, because I really like quirky stories." And I went to my agent and I said, can we go back and ask him to define quirky? Because it's, in this context, it's a fairly broad, definition. If this is quirky, but he doesn't like quirky, but that's a good quirky. And she said, no, that's not the way the business worked. And I thought about that. And then at some point I said, maybe I should go my own way. And we parted ways amicably, and I went on. And shortly after that, I read something about that the worst writer is the writer that thinks they know more than the agent. And that was an aha moment for me. I was like, God, Buzz, you're a real dick. What did you do? And so that was a good lesson for me. That was a good lesson for me. And some of that went into, by any other name, Alex Dunn is a bit of an idiot, a bit of a dick. He thinks he's the bee's knees when it comes to writing. And as the story progresses, you realize, well, he's really not. This guy he made up is really a good writer. So the people think, and that's really what matters.
That's interesting, because that gets you to one of my final thoughts is, what are the themes, and what do you anticipate or would like the readers to take away from this novel?
I want the readers to take away from the novel what they find that is meaningful to them. I proudly write beach reads and books for airplanes. I don't think I'm not the great American writer. I'm not writing the great American short story. You know, it's taken years to get here, but I'm quite content to write something that someone's sitting on the beach and enjoying. I got an email from a friend. He's in Paris, and he read the first one, and he says he's there. He's sitting on his patio somewhere in Paris reading it, and he says he's enjoying it. It's good, and if he enjoys it, you know, that's sort of my goal, is enjoy it. There are, ironic twists. There's we're taking a jab at publishing, taking a jab at the legal system, taking a jab at television, fame. Obviously, fame is a big one. It's never what you think it is, and it turns out it's never really what you wanted. So that kind of comes through. But bottom line is, if you read it and you enjoy it and you find some value, if you don't think you've wasted time reading it, then I'm as content as the writer as I hope you are as the reader.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot going on there, and a lot of, as I said, you got a lot of sub characters. You've got a fair amount of main characters, and they're very intertwined, and the story blends together in a very homogeneous way, and in the end it all works, which is very good. It's a testament to your writing skills. So what's next? Where do you go from here? What do you see as your follow-on to this, or precursor?
Right. Oddly enough, people have asked me about, you're going to write another Golf Dogs. So I've been making some notes. There's I mentioned a third novel I finished. I've got 3 or 4 started. So really, in a way, it's an embarrassment of riches as to where I'm going to spend the next 6 months. Fitting it in on the golf course, I think it's easier to read with the slow foursome in front than it is to write. But I'll give it a go, Ralph. I'll see what we can do. But yeah, no, there's
slow. Sometimes you get a foursome that's so slow you almost fall asleep, but that's okay. That's different. I take out that book. I went out pages.
I went out today and played, and there's this one guy at the club we play with, and he does not broach chit chat, and he's not in any way, shape, or form interested in socializing beyond getting everyone off the tee box. And I think we did 18 holes in 3 hours, and that's that's the way you play. And other times you have, it's great. And then you have that foursome in front of you that you want to go down and help them put the ball in the fairway, because it saves time when you're not hunting down the balls.
Give the
but anyway,
audience.
so there's a potentially another Golf Dogs in the making. A one, oddly enough, I've got an outline about the federal government, so that might be interesting, based on your background and mine. Where were you, by the way? Where did you work? if you can
Oh,
tell me.
sure I can. I spent about 25 years with MCI right from its
Oh,
start, pretty much. And then I went to several other telecommunications startups along the way. And then the last 15 years, myself and three other partners had a small consulting practice in the DC area. We focused on supporting government contractors and various types of companies that needed some sort of retooling. So
great.
it was enjoyable, and it's a good way to end your career. You kind of can
Yes.
wind down very easily, and allowed me to retire 3 years after I wanted to retire. But it was fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
But
good.
let's we have a winner, so let's announce the winner. And then I want to give the audience a thumbnail sketch of golf dogs, and I want to see where you might be taking golf dogs. So
We do have a winner. Congratulations, Katie Raskin, who, because that was a tough question, Ralph, I thought, but she came up with A Scandal of Bohemia as one of the novels that Sherlock Holmes does not solve the murder. So congratulations. Thank you so much for playing, Katie. And if you would send us your address for mailing, just send a private message to the Zebra Press Facebook page and we'll pick your address up. So thank you so much for playing the game.
and the other two
If I
were
could,
the yellow
yeah,
face and the 5 orange pips.
Yeah.
So in case
and
anybody needs to know that.
if I could save some time, Siobhan Kitchen and Katie Raskin don't need to send you addresses.
Okay.
I know what their addresses
Okay,
are.
good. Well, great.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
send you
that'll save you
Nancy's.
some time.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I'll
please do.
send you Nancy's
Please
address
do.
then, Buzz. Okay.
Yes.
So give a 2-minute summary of golf dogs and how you see golf dogs evolving into golf dogs 2 if it's going to be a second golf
Okay.
dogs.
Golf Dogs is a story of a tournament that occurs every year at the Van Cortlandt Glen Country Club, huge country club down in Fredericksburg. And every year the tournament is won by Tiberius J. Monk, and everyone knows that Monk cheats, but you can't really catch him doing it. So this one foursome with Travis Dempsey is the protagonist. He's out practicing one night, and his Jack Russell Terrier turns out to be a great ball tracker because Dempsey's vision is that good. So he convinces the Scottish starter McTavish, to allow his dog to help find balls. Won't touch the ball, but help find the balls. Well, it's such a competitive tournament that every other team out there starts bringing their dogs to the golf course. And not all dogs are designed to track golf balls. So you end up with a pack of dogs on the golf course stealing golf balls from all the golfers, and it becomes just madness. So the ending I won't spoil for you. You have to read that book too, because if I tell you everything, I might as well just pack up and go home. but, but the thing is, you've got McTavish and you've got Arnie P, which is the Jack Russell. He's sort of a major minor character. Muck is crippled after the first book, but the thought for a follow-on, I wrote a short story that took place. Is called Murder at the Turn. And one morning, one of the young groundskeepers comes out and finds a body laying on the cart path next to the 10th tee box. And McTavish shows up, and he kind of gets people to go on to 11, tee off at 11. We got the police come by, and the cause is not murder. But I figured I can take that and put that into a story as part of a plot. I can put. I was thinking McTavish has told his family back in Scotland that he's a bigwig at the club, and so now his family's going to come and see the club. So they have to figure out some way to make sure McTavish comes across as this bigwig, president of the club, whatever. And he's just the starter. So it madness and hilarity will ensue. That's the hope.
Great. Look forward to getting that one. have you back.
I'll be sure to get you a copy.
Oh, absolutely. Buzz, it's been a pleasure. You've been a great guest.
Well, thank you,
Enjoyed
Ralph.
reading
Thanks for your
your book.
time.
You're welcome.
Great. I'll get you the next one.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, listen, Buzz, thank you so much for joining the show tonight and for
Thank you,
bringing
Susan.
your fans. It was nice to have a participating audience playing Ralph's great trivia games. Ralph, thank you so much for another wonderful edition of Reading, Writing, and Ralph. And we will see you back here in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, we will have Kim Thompson on with her terrific cookbook and organic gardening. Amen to the gardener. That will be interesting on the trivia. So
Excellent.
Join in, and we're going to have some fun with that one.
Excellent. We always do when you're on. Thank you so much, Ralph and Buzz. You guys have a good evening. Okay, that's going to do it for us tonight for ZTV Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. ZTV Live is on hiatus tomorrow night, but please join us back here Wednesday night. Elisa Kovac of Alexandria Makers Market will be here with another episode of Make It Alexandria. And again, next week, be sure to tune in every Monday for Steve Houck and Living on Music. And that'll do it for tonight. Remember, as much as you can, to be the good news in someone's life.